Alright, so these examples are for support for college algebra 9.6. Alright, so my number 1 wants me to solve. So they're giving me a fractional equation, y minus 5 over y plus 3 equals 4 over 5. So on this problem, I'm going to use this property that says if you got two fractions equal together, to get rid of the fractions, you would cross multiply. A times D would equal to B times C. So I'm going to use that property on this problem. So this whole top, y minus 5, has to get multiplied by the 5. So that's going to be a 5 times y minus 5 in parentheses. I'm putting it in parentheses because the 5 down here has to multiply by both of these. And same thing with this one. This bottom multiplies by that top. So that'll be 4 times y plus 3. Alright, so the fraction's gone, so we're going to distribute the 5 on this side, distribute the 4 on the right side. So this side, 5 times y is 5y, minus 5 times 5 is 25. That's going to equal 4 times y is 4y, plus 4 times 3 is 12. Now, you just solve this. Get the y's on one side, numbers to the other. So to move this positive 4y, you're going to subtract 4y from both sides. So that gives you 5 minus 4 is 1y, minus 25 equals 12, because the 4y is canceled. Now let's see, since this 25 is negative, we need to pull it over here by adding 25, because that makes it 0 on that side. And since these are equations, when I'm doing to one side, I'm also doing to the other, right? So these cancel, so all that's left is the y equals 12 plus 25 is 37. Final answer. Now, here's another one with a fraction. X plus 6 over x equals 3 times 2. So we're going to still cross multiply because I got one fraction equal to another. So this x plus 6 multiplies by the 2. So I'll do 2 times x plus 6. That's going to equal this x times the 3, which is just a 3 times x, or 3x. So before I go further, I'm going to distribute on this side. 2 times x is 2x, plus 2 times 6 is 12. That's going to equal our 3x. So this is one of them cases where I'm going to move my x's to the right side because that's just an x by itself, and no sense to move the x's over here and the numbers over there. So to do this in quicker steps, we will subtract this 2x. Since it's positive, we'll subtract it from both sides. So those cancel, so 12 is left. And then look over here, 3x's minus 2x's leaves me 1x, and I'm actually done now. Alright, 3, another fraction. 7 over 5x minus 3 is going to equal, let's see, that's a 5 over 9x. Alright, same thing. 7 up here multiplies by the 9x. So I got 7 times my 9x. Now I just put the 9x first for some reason. That's going to equal this 5 times the 5x minus 3. So the whole purpose of these problems is just to get you to realize that when you got two parts down here, both of them got to multiply by that term, okay? Alright, so I can multiply this side. 9x times 7 is 63x. On this side, we distribute. 5 times 5x is 25x, minus 5 times 3 is 15. So this one has a single x over here, so I'm going to move this x to this side by subtracting the 25x from both sides. Alright, so let's see, we got a calculator here to knock this out. So let me see, what is 63 minus 25 going to equal? And what's that, 38? So I got 38 x's, and then the 25 x's canceled on that side, so I bring down to negative 15. Alright, so let's see, we got 38x equals negative 15, so I'm just going to bring it up here to have more room. So to turn that into a 1x, I need to divide both sides by the 38. So those cancel, make a 1x. Over here, let's see, I know it's going to stay negative. And 15 and 38 don't have no factors in common that simplify. So that's just going to give me a 15 over 38. Alright, y'all, so let me turn my page so I can knock out the next one. Alright, number 4 says solve. They give me a s squared minus 6s minus 40 equals 0. So quadratic trinomials like this is a quadratic equation. I can use the factoring to solve this, which I will do, or you can use the quadratic formula to solve this. So since I got a lot of time, I'm going to solve this both ways. First, I'm going to factor it. So since that's an s squared in the front, I'm going to break out my parentheses. To get an s squared, both of these will have an s in the front of them. Now, since the last number is negative, you got to have unlike signs. One will be positive, one will be negative. And then we need to find factors of 40 that have a difference or subtract to get 6. So 40 would be 1 and 40, 2 and 20, 4 and 10, 5 and 8. The ones that will subtract and give me the 6 would be 10 and 4. So the larger factor 10 has the same sign as the middle, so it's going to be negative, and the 4 will be positive. Now that we got it factored into an s plus 4, s minus 10 equals 0, I would set both of them factors equal to 0 so that I could solve them. So we would subtract 4 on the first one and get s equals a negative 4. The second one I would add 10 and get s equals a positive 10. That's one way to do that. Second way, you could have used the quad. X equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So bring down that negative. B is a negative 6, so we're going to put our negative 6 in parentheses. So that's going to give you two negatives there, and I'm going to make that positive in a little bit. Then you got plus or minus square root. B squared will be negative 6 squared minus 4 times A, which is 1, and C, which is a negative 40. All of that's over 2 times my A, which was 1. So plug in all your numbers. A was 1, B was negative 6, C was negative 40. So once we plug all that in, it's just now a matter of simplifying this. So the double negatives make that a positive 6. Under the square root, negative 6 squared is a positive 36. Now this end, all this is getting multiplied. We got two negatives, so that's going to make that all positive. And then really 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 40 is 160. All of that's over. 2 times 1 is 2. So now bring down our 6, plus or minus. Under the radical, we can now add 36 and 160 and get 196. All that's over 2. Alright, so let's see what happens. Bring down the 6, plus or minus. On this one, 196 is a perfect square, so if you would hit the calculator, see the little square root above the x squared button there? That's right there's a little blue square root, so you hit the on button to turn it on, of course. Second, x squared brings up the radical, and I'm going to put in my 196 and hit enter. So that's going to give me 14. So at the moment I got 6 plus or minus 14 all over 2. So before I get my two answers, since all three of these numbers will divide by 2, I'm going to simplify this into a 3 plus or minus 7 all over 1. So since I got a 1 on the bottom, I don't have to write it. So to get your first answer, you would do 3 plus 7, which will give me 10. So there's one of my answers I got a while ago. To get my second answer, I would do 3 minus 7. So you use the plus to add first, and then you use the minus to subtract. And 3 minus 7 is going to give me that other answer of -4. Okay, so either way works. I prefer to factor them if I know the factors because it's a lot quicker. But this quadratic formula we can use on every single quadratic equation. We cannot always use factoring because sometimes they don't factor. But we always can use the quad. Alright, the last one said solve by factoring. 2x squared plus a x minus 10 equals 0. So I'm not going to use the quad on this, although you could because it's a quadratic equation. A would be 2, B would be 1, C would be the -10. Put it in the quad, it would give you the answers. But they want me to solve this one by factoring. So, since there's a 2 in front, you got to multiply the 2 times 10. That's going to give you 20. Now we set up our parentheses. To get an x squared, you put an x and an x. That's negative, so one's positive and one's negative. Now, the reason we multiply these numbers is because we got to find factors of this 20 that'll subtract to get the middle number of a 1. So factors of 20 are 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. The factors that have a difference of 1 are 5 and 4. Since the middle's positive, the 5 is positive, the 4 will be negative. Now notice I made them sort of small because I'm about to draw a line. Because anytime you have a number in the front and you have to multiply to get a product and to use that product to get the middle number, anytime you do that move, you always got to divide both the factors you find by the first number 2. So we borrow it and multiplied it. Now we got to divide it back out if possible. Now this factor, it don't divide, right? 5 don't divide by 2 or simplify. So since it don't simplify, you would move the 2 in front of the x and get a 2x plus 5. This factor will divide. So I would bring down the x minus 4 will divide by 2 and make that a 2, all equal to 0. So now I've got it factored. So what I would do now is set both my factors, 2x plus 5 equal to 0 and x minus 2 equal to 0. So solve the first one, subtract 5. Then divide both sides by 2 so that you get an x equal to a -5/2. You know what's neat? That -5/2 is opposite in sign from that +5/2. So always the answers or zeros are always opposite in sign than the simplified factors, okay? Alright, then my second one I would add 2 and x equals +2. Now, since that factor is simplified into a 2 that was negative, my final answer was a +2. Alright, y'all, so that is our support 9.6. So good luck and see y'all later.